All right, so let's do this. Welcome, everyone. My name is Daniel Pasco Aguilar. I'm founding director of the Center for Social Justice, Chief Diversity Officer, and Title IX Coordinator at Excelsior University. We are thrilled to have you with us today. Excelsior University's leadership, the Center for Social Justice, and the Different Abilities Rope Team welcome you to today's International Day of Persons with Disabilities keynote and discussion. For those of you who are not acquainted with Excelsior's rope teams, we have 11, soon 15 communities we call rope teams that we describe as representation and support villages around our students based on the dimensions of identity that matter to them and to allies. If you want to learn more about our rope teams or how to engage with them, you can visit them at communities.excelsior.edu, or you can contact the Center for Social Justice for more information. We have a very special guest with us today. Jorge Font Ramírez, Director of Institutional Philosophy at Fundación Teletón, an impressive 9-time world champion and 5-time world record holder water skier, author of Ensanchar la Vida, which means broadening life, and an amazing colleague and friend. This is really a treat. And thank you for visiting us this afternoon, Jorge. For those of you who might not know, we are in Excelsior's Florida site, St. Petersburg, Florida. And we're really happy to be here away from the snow in the new site, which is opening in January. And Jorge, we're honored to have you. Before I introduce you formally, though, I have the pleasure of introducing Camille Dumont, Associate Director of the Career Readiness Center of Excelsior University, who has kindly offered to say a few words about International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Camille, I'll pass the microphone to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Daniel. So, every year on December 3rd, the world observes the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, or IDPD, a United Nations designated day that spotlights the rights, dignity, and participation of people with disabilities. The day was established by the UN General Assembly in 1992, and since its inception, it has served as a platform to promote an understanding of disability issues and mobilize support for the dignity, rights, and well-being of persons with disabilities, and to push for their full integration into political, social, economic, and cultural life. The 2025 observance carries the theme Fostering Disability Inclusive Societies for Advancing Social Progress, echoing the UN's call for disability inclusion to be a precondition and driver of lasting social and economic development. The theme underscores the need for persons with disabilities, including those with visible, invisible, physical, mental, and neurological ability differences, to take leadership roles and have their voices shape policies, workplaces, and campuses. In the United States, disability affects a sizable portion of the population. Current data shows that about 1 in 4 Americans, roughly 61 million people, or 28.7% of the population, live with a disability. Cognitive disabilities, which include learning disabilities, autism, spectrum disorder, ADHD, and other neurodivergent conditions, are the most common type, affecting 13.9% of the U.S. adults. In higher education, the landscape reflects both challenge and potential. Only 27% of students with disabilities attend four-year degree-granting institutions, compared with 54% of their non-disabled peers, highlighting persistent access gaps. Neurodivergent students, those on the autism spectrum with ADHD, dyslexia, dysgraphia, and other specific learning disabilities, make up a substantial group. For instance, 32% of students receiving special education services have a learning disability. about 2.4 million students, and many spend the majority of their day in general education classrooms, illustrating progress toward inclusive education. Despite these advances, challenges remain stark. People with disabilities experience higher risk of poverty, limited access to decent work, unemployment rates 7.2% versus 3.5% for those without disabilities, and lower wages. College students with disabilities often encounter barriers to full participation, from physical inaccessibility to insufficient academic accommodations. And data show that only 9% of grade 8 students with disabilities reach reading proficiency, compared with 31% of all students, a 22-point gap. IDPD 2025 thus invites educators, employers, policymakers, and communities to foster disability-inclusive societies. For colleges, this means strengthening support for neurodiverse learners, expanding accessible technologies, and creating campus culture where students with physical, mental, or neurological disabilities can thrive academically and socially. For the broader U.S. population, it is a reminder that inclusion unlocks potential. When barriers fall, productivity rises, and talent is no longer sidelined. By centering the leadership and lived experiences of persons with disabilities, society can advance social progress that leaves no one behind. Back to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Camille. This is wonderful. Well, before we pass the microphone to Jorge, I want to thank a number of people and units that made today's event possible, starting with Maria, Courtney, and Nick from marketing, Erin, Stacy, Jason, and Connor from communications, Bonnie from academic affairs, Jamie and Mackenzie from development, our president and cabinet, Jill and Lori from the president's office, and Camille from the Career Readiness Center. Thank you so much for your amazing partnership and support. And I must say that we have Jorge's partner, Tere Corona, and her mother here with us. So thank you so much for joining us as well. Welcome. Also, at around 3:45 today, during the session, we'll have time for a brief discussion about the contents of today's session. Please input your questions and comments in our webinar's Q&A space. Don't wait till the end. As you come up with those, just input them there. And for Camille and I to bring them up to Jorge. And also know that if you are interested in being elevated to become a panelist, then we'll do that. And you can ask your question visibly and verbally if that's what you want to do. So start thinking of questions and comments that you might want to make. So and now I have the incredible privilege of introducing Jorge Font Ramírez. So Jorge serves as Director of Institutional Philosophy at Fundación Teletón, a fairly large organization in Mexico, and as an associate member of the Board of Trustees of also one of the most prominent higher education institutions in Mexico, the Instituto Tecnológico de Monterrey, specifically of the Cuernavaca, Mexico campus. Jorge has been a consultant and speaker for over 30 years. Jorge has also been an impressive athlete with a disability. As a water skier, he has been a 9-time world champion, a 5-time world record holder in the tricks category, as well as a 7-time world champion in the slalom category. Jorge is the author of the book Ensanchar la Vida, which means broadening life. He holds a degree in business administration from Instituto Tecnológico de Monterrey and a master's degree in human development from Universidad Iberoamericana, both in Mexico. Jorge, it is such an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and for being sharing your expertise and your presentation today. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Camille. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you to everyone that is sharing today. this opportunity to share about I would say like the inclusion experience, no? So I would start with I would say like the first question that at least came to my mind when I had my accident more than 30 years ago, and when I got into the I would say the disabled world. And it was like this question that probably everybody makes themselves. It's why me? No, why did it happen to me? And I think that the first answer after what I saw that was happening around me was thank you. Thank you for all the people that have been around me. And I would say that the question is still the same today. Why me? Why am I talking? And the answer is the same. Thank you for being surrounded by great people that have the chance to make the questions of how to make this world broader and how to make the spaces that we work in or study in a place for everyone. So I would start by saying that I am the world's largest debtor. I have my credit score is negative because I have an affection and a love debt that I will not be able to pay in all my life. So that's the first thing that I would like to thank you, Camille. Thank you, Daniel, because the opportunity to share today is trying to get my credit score a little bit back and to give back a lot of what I've received. So I would say that I would start with this. I am a very fortunate person. I had the chance to be treated in a private hospital and even become a very good friend of the neurosurgeon that attended me. I will talk about some statistics in Mexico because I lived there most of my life. In a place where only like 20% of people have access, like people with disability have access to private hospitals or private treatments, I have the chance to have a family where my name sounds great in a country where the statistics say that 12% of people say they will not be able to have a people with disability in their home. I have a group of friends that have showed me that it's better the story of my life rolls on, other than the tragedy of he lived tied to a wheelchair. And I had the great opportunity to have like a homemade rehab and a great therapist that taught me like rehabilitation was like a training space and not a concentration camp. I had the chance of, I would say, like faced with the terror of being a useless part. I had the chance and the privilege, I would say, of studying a university degree and a master's degree in a country where 86% of the people with disabilities only have like basic education. I have the chance of working surrounded by friends in Fundación Teletón and also as an independent business consultant in a country where only 7% of people with disabilities earn more than 5 minimum wages. I have the chance to, I would say, to exercise my right to serve in some foundations. I also have the privilege of feeling alive and passion, water skiing, and I can introduce myself also as Tara's husband and Pablo's father. But I think that the great question today is how to make this not an issue of being fortunate or of luck, but of rights and equal opportunities, and that is inclusion. And as you know, there are many variables and a lot of actions that has to be taken to achieve inclusion. I would share to you, I will propose to you, according to my experience, 4 areas that are essential for inclusion. The first one is the heart. Disability, like any other, I would say, existential situation, can be a great opportunity for growth and self-knowledge. Of course, like any other learning, this has a price. And the cost that to allow ourselves to learn, the price to pay is to let ourselves be touched by another's reality. I will explain this with some example. There's a great book. It's called A Personal Matter. It's a great novel, and it's about this teacher whose kid is born with a quite severe disability, and at first he's so shocked that he tries to get rid of the kid, I would say, and then he turns into this terrible personal crisis. At the end, he decides to let the kid live, and anyway, it's a great story. It really catches you. And they say, by the way, this is an autobiographical novel. They say that Kensaburo Oe is a Nobel Prize writer because he let himself be touched by the life of his son, Isaburo Oe. So, and that is why I think that we must go through life as learners, grateful and bowing to those who are different, like saying, "You are my teacher. Thanks to you, I discover nuances, edges, perspectives that broaden my life. Thank you for existing and for being that different mirror where I can see different aspects of myself that makes my life broader." So there's my friend Elena. Also, you don't have to be like a Japanese writer. Elena is my teacher, and she shows me how she is touched by Juliana, who has her sister, who has Down syndrome. Disability is not just hard, it's also reason. Disability, I think, asks us whether we want to live up to the strength of reason or surrender to the irrationality of brute force. I think that as a country, as a community, as a society, if we don't respond to this with justice, this makes up just us, a group of primitive individuals who, under the law of the strongest and the majorities, will lose meaning and will lose the true strength, the strength that comes from meeting complementary abilities. And what you may have, what I need, and I can be of some help for you. Let me also show you that I think that disability from the right-based perspective, or the paradigm of the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disability, disability is a relative concept, not an absolute one. I will show it with a metaphor and an example. There are organisms, there are some animals, I would say, some species that are very slow on land, but underwater, life flows. I should be there and not up here. What I'm talking about is disability has to do with the barriers. That is the relative concept. It's not absolute to a person. It's relative to the barriers that we encounter in the surroundings. So it's not just removing barriers for people with disabilities. When we remove barriers, we also help people that don't have disabilities. I worked for 10 years in a school, and I remember Tere, my wife, who was the academical director, presenting to the board how accepting a kid with autism was going to elevate the educational level for everyone, because we could offer a better personal-centered education. It's not just hard, not just reason. We have to take action. I will share to you like 5 simple actions that I would say everyone can do to promote inclusion. I think that the first one is reflection. Inclusion is an inside-out process. It begins by looking humbly in the mirror and recognizing that our prejudices, my stereotypes, my unconscious bias, my lack of information can be the first barrier to inclusion and to the exercise of our rights. So, what to do? Reflection, questioning, informing myself, and researching can help to prevent that these unfounded ideas shape my behavior. I would say that even this is like very challenging in this moment, because it is very easy with the social media, and it is very tempting to spread negative, stigmatizing, prejudiced, or even discriminatory messages just by giving them like or just like resending them, and they can go viral. So before writing, forwarding anything, I think we should ask, is this adding value? Is this helping one? Can we foster an epidemic of inclusion instead? So I also think that everyday language, we should be more mindful about it, because language faithfully reflects our thoughts. So the way we speak reflects our thinking. It's not just a matter of etiquette or like being like, I would say, like politically correct. Second action, it's not just reflection, it's approaching others. I would say that it's good to approach people that are different. In this example, people with disabilities, to understand how they live, how they experience life. I think that approaching others encourage a respectful exchange of ideas and viewpoints. I think that it is important to be an explorer. Right? An explorer doesn't mean you have to go to the Himalayas or Kilimanjaro on the other side of the world. I think that being an explorer is a mindset in which you practically seek ways to approach people or groups that may seem very distant from your daily life. And I think that visiting the poles of human existence, death, disability, imprisonment, poverty, migration, enriches your inner world and makes your life broader, and it makes you like I would say, a more interesting person to be around. Building community. I would say that being a member of a community involves and invites you to relate in ways that enrich everyone. There are 2 elements here. I would say this balance of solidarity and development. Solidarity has to do with helping others do what they cannot do for themselves, which is very challenging, because doing for others what they can do for themselves is disrespectful. It generates dependency and it undermines self-determination. Mm-hmm. I would say that the arrogance of doing for others, or the violence or of doing to others, turns people into objects. I think that doing with others allows us to see each other as we are, as persons, as friends,
Mm.
as colleagues, as companions, and we can celebrate life and have a mutual learning when we meet people and not things. So I think that we all have these complementary abilities, and that is part of what building a community is about. Promote inclusion and not pity. Pity is I would say like this, condescending gaze, like this sort of looking people from the top down, looking others from above. And it's very different from being sensible, from letting the energy of feeling others be the vital energy that reminds ourselves of our humanity. I think inclusion is the concrete way to translate that energy into strategies that restores human dignity. I think that Camille was talking about that before, to build a culture. It's to build a culture of human rights. And that includes like demand the compliance of the law, and also to fulfill my responsibilities, and also to strengthen all those institutions that put the human person at the center. And if you like any of these ideas, I would say that the fifth action is to communicate, to keep the, I would say, to keep the conversation going, to take these ideas and enrich them, make proposals. These proposals don't have to be like a founding of a very big new foundation or project. It can start with little things in your work, in your family, in your community, in your space. Because inclusion, I think, is a never-ending conversation. So I think that these days remind us that the important part is the starting point. Where we're going to end, I think it's a never-ending opportunity to learn, to broaden our lives, and to build more deeply founded consciousness. So turning your commitments into projects, proposals, groups, or concrete initiatives. And also, if you know of any foundations, association groups, or existing projects, I know of a lot of them, and they're always, I would say, in need to have allies like you. Heart, reason, actions, and I would say it's impossible. It's important to have hope, to dream. I think that I like what Joan Manuel Serrat says: without utopia, life would be a rehearsal for death. So let me share with you, I think, like, I would say, two dreams that I believe call us today to be here. The first one is the idea of building spaces, communities, countries, or a world that could be measured by their capacity to embrace the most fragile and vulnerable. I think that I love like this simple yet powerful invitation of Mr. Rogers. I would love you to be my neighbor because you are unique, you're special, you're indispensable, you're necessary, you're essential. And that only happens in a community. There's no disability in a community, because in a community, everybody is, as Mr. Rogers invites us to be in a neighborhood. We're special. we are needed. We have to be there, and we can offer our community something special. And the other one, I would say the other dream is the invitation to build a country that is worth according to putting the people, especially young persons, at the center. A country where the institutions, the groups, the communities, laws, structures, spirits, heart, dreams can tell every kid, every girl, each morning, welcome, come forward. We need your projects. I would like this day to be like an invitation for all the students of Excelsior University to remind themselves of making this question: what is your gift to this world? What would you like to do to make this planet better? Because we need you. You matter to us. And I would say that every person with every special capability, with or without disabilities, we are all needed. So I would say for all the persons that are studying here or that work in the Excelsior University or are part of their communities, I would say, like, go ahead, answer this question and make yourself and make your life project a work of art. And I hope that the International Day of People with Disabilities would give you another color for the stroke of today. So in your canvas of your experience, you will have brighter colors, more combinations. And I would say that thank you for building a community, country, and a world where all the kids and all the persons can wake up in the morning with or without disabilities and say to life in the morning, as they say in Italian, buongiorno principessa, welcome princess, welcome life as it comes, and let us shine together. Thank you very much, and I hope there are some questions, and I hope I can give you some answers. If not, we have Daniel here to help me.
Thank you, Jorge. Let me stop sharing so that we can see each other. And let me also remove this pin so that we can see Camille. There we go. Well, first, thank you. And I must confess, there are some people, actually quite a bit of people with whom I interact on a regular basis, that after we talk, I go home or I leave the meeting and think, wow, that was really interesting. I learned something. With you, Jorge, I often feel that every single thing you say, I'm learning, I'm looking at things in a different way. So your presence and your wisdom is really special. And today you brought up a couple of concepts that really made me think in a different way. I like how you are admonishing us to, or strongly recommending us to allow ourselves to be touched by difference. That has a lot of depth. I think it's at the root of some of the challenges that we're facing right now. That sometimes, at most, we're open to interacting with difference or considering difference, but that's very different than letting myself be touched by difference. We had a speaker for Martin Luther King almost a year ago, who shared a story about how he wanted to do something for the homeless population. So he started to give to the homeless. Started to go to them and ask them what they needed, and then go and get it for them. And there was one person who told him, "I don't really want a meal. I want to share a meal with you." Right, and that was he spoke about his experience in a very cathartic way, in a very eloquent way, about how he realized what they want is company. They are lonely. They're not only hungry. Nobody wants to be with them. And I had to he said I decided to disrupt my plans. I went with friends. I invited my friends, and we all shared a meal. And we had a conversation, and we developed our relationship. And I think that is one of the most important parts of our growth in this world, in our intercultural development, is how do we let difference to touch us? How do we engage with difference? Not just interact with it, but engage and let it touch ourselves. So when from your experience, as you think of how the world interacts with difference, and the other concept that you brought up that is really powerful is that difference, and even what is considered a limitation, is based on the barrier it's facing, right? And we can change that. And I don't think that we do that very well. So, how do you recommend that people in the audience of this session, but all of us in general, think of interacting with ability differences in a way that allows us to be touched by difference, and in a way that allows us to focus on the barrier, not on the perceived limitation, that then develops a hierarchy, right? Rather than us together figuring out how to solve a problem.
I think that it's a very good question, and I think that first of all, it has to do with your sense of security, and also on what you think is to be a person. Because I think it is very common to think of ourselves as Superman or Superwoman, and that's like the ideal to achieve. And I think that Superman and Superwoman are very lonely. and I think that you said it beautifully. I think that we are all hungry of love, of meeting others. And I would say that it's very challenging because it's quite different from what we probably perceive every day in our daily culture. No, it's like what is what really matters? What is that really matters for you? And I think that we live in such a rush that we need more days like this. The days like this work as a pit stop in our hurried life, to make a pit stop and to think, what is truly important? What is my gift to life? What is my purpose? What are the values that are guiding my life? And if you don't want to be that philosophical, you can also start by doing like these small exercises. Like, you don't have to start with the most challenging experience of going to to a rehab center with people with a lot of difficult disabilities. You just like look at yourself in the mirror, probably close your eyes after watching yourself so you don't get very tired of yourself, and then like think of a person in your classroom, in your work group. Think of a person that is not your best friend, that challenges you. What do you feel? What does that person provokes?
Mhm.
And that's a start. You start by identifying what is not in that other person. What is the barrier that is not allowing me to understand that person? And I think that's a very practical way of starting without having to create a foundation or do something very exceptional.
Mhm.
That is and if you are a leader of an organization, that's another starting point. I would say this a different view of leadership where they say, I like this idea of Fred Kaufman that he says that a true leader doesn't have followers, which sounds strange. Because what a true leader does is to signal a cause or a purpose that is worth of having followers. And if that cause is big enough, you are not big enough to achieve it by yourself. So you need others to achieve that goal. And I think that's a different mindset of leadership that would invite you to be an inclusive leader because you need different points of views to be creative and to achieve that purpose that is very important. So I think that it depends on where are you. There are many starting points where you can start being touched by what can be different to achieve your purpose or the purpose of your organization, or just to have a meal of what is really makes us all hungry. That is to find someone to feel your heart beat at the same rhythm.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. And I love how grounded your recommendation is, because I think we often hesitate because we think of a first step that's too big or that feels too big. And it can start small, and that's the way forward. Well, we also have the privilege of having here with us an expert in career development, Camille Dumont, who I know has some questions. So I'll pass the word to you, Camille, to ask Jorge a question.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate all of the wonderful words of advice that you've shared, Jorge. My job is to help students navigate their way professionally, wherever, stage they're at, and those with disabilities, veterans, and all students. But how would you advise a student who may have a disability to present their experience with their disability and even with their accommodations as a strength rather than a limitation when they're presenting themselves to a potential employer?
I think that's a great question, and it has to do with I don't know if the answer is right, Camille, but doing your homework. If you're going to ask for a job somewhere, you have to do your job in the sense of making the research of what they do here. What is the purpose of this organization? And the next question is, how can I add value to that purpose? And that is a different a mindset, I would say, for both employers and employees, because I think that for uh, inclusion in work, it's how do disability adds value, no? And it can be a very broad question, but I would say that there are at least three opportunities. The first one is business case. Market opportunity. You gave us the numbers of the people with disabilities, and it's a big market, Camille. And not all the companies are targeting that market, and they can be losing a market opportunity just by having that perspective. So if I'm a person with a disability, I can probably help you understand that market and help you have like a market opportunity business-wise. Second is like I would say the talent in the people that we can hire in an organization, and how can that help not just me as a person with disabilities, but if you like an employer are trying to identify barriers for people feeling that they can be themselves in their work. And that doesn't have to do with like making it a club, because when people feel themselves that can go like whole to work, they're more productive because they can put all their mind and all their heart and all their soul in what they're doing. So hiring a person with disabilities can also help them. And also, there's a big lever of innovation. Some of the things that we use on a day-to-day basis were invented for people with disabilities. The keyboards were invented by an Italian guy who wanted to communicate, and they were and his fiancée was getting blind, so he invented the keyboard. The email was invented by by a couple that were losing their hearing. So disability can be a lever for innovation, but some of us have to do I would say, the homework of researching where do we want to work, what are they doing, and make us the question of how do we add value to that project, because we are going to be hired by our capabilities and not by just a quote of disabilities. That I would say that's a mindset to have.
Thank you.
And it makes me think, Jorge, that because you responded to the question both in terms of what should a candidate be doing, but also what should an organization be thinking. It reminds me all the time, it's often that people I need to hire are people who are great networkers, people who are great problem solvers, right? That if they end up stuck somewhere, that they'll figure out a way and make it happen. And I am yet to come across an employer that doesn't think that. And I work with a lot of employers in higher education, or that recruit students from higher education. And I think there's a switch that needs to happen in how we look at the abilities that we need, because if I need someone who's a good networker and a good problem solver, do I want someone who studied problem solving and networking? Do I want someone who has practiced it here and there? Or do I want someone who has needed to network and problem solve every single day of their lives to make things work? So I'm actually missing the mark, right? I go by the higher degree and the most years of experience, not thinking that I'm missing, right, that incredible innate and daily ability that has been developed through many years to do exactly what I want them to do. And I think it is just critical that we don't only help our candidates to think differently, but that we help our workforce, right, our employers, to think differently about who we hire, who do we need to do our best work, who do we need to solve the problems of the world, I think we're missing out a lot. And then if we think of it, that the solutions we're developing have gaps and holes because we didn't include the people we needed, right? Or we're missing entire populations we didn't think about. Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. The other space that I really wanted to enter, and let me check, Camille, any questions in the room before I?
Not that I'm seeing.
Comments? Okay, folks, if you have a question, this is the time to think about it and put it in the chat or in the Q&A space. We only have a few more minutes, but I really liked when you talked about dream of moving from communities that give space to the different to communities that need the different. And you mentioned earlier that it was very important for one to think, what is preventing me from connecting with this person? I often think that it is very important to go through the exercise of thinking, if I have a privilege, and remember, privilege is not that I've taken advantage of things. Privilege is that I just don't have to worry about something that worries someone else sick every day. Right? I just don't have to think about it. If I identify that, and we know, right, when we have a privilege, to reflect and to think, what allowed me to get to this place? And therefore, how can I support those who don't have that particular opportunity? So how would you recommend that as community members, right? Let's move from organizations to community members as people in society. What are small steps that you recommend that we take to not only think of difference and those different to us around us as people to whom we give space, but people we need?
I think that it's, for instance, Camille and you, Daniel, I think that you are like sensible persons, and that you have like this, like I would say, you look at life through these glasses that when you do it every day, you probably see yourselves as that's a normal way of looking around, and it's not like that. I think that what you talked about, and Camille also, it's like having this, I would say, this view that is not common of seeing capabilities and not just disabilities. Because disabilities, I know there are a lot of, I would say, not evident disabilities, but even in an like I would say, when you look at me, my physical disability is very evident. Probably not on Zoom, but if you see me like in the whole picture, no? But anyway, the challenge is how to see abilities, how not to get stuck in the first like impression of someone that has some different like condition. And that's a great framework to move around. And that has to do, Daniel, with looking at what is not evident, because sometimes even like these words that are very clear that you use, like privilege, it sometimes create defensiveness. I think of it in the sense of like, for instance, we're here, probably imagine that there's a super strong wind. We're in this room, we don't feel the wind, it's outside, and we see someone running one direction and another person running the other direction. The person who has the tailwind, we don't see it, but there is a very clear advantage. And the person that's running headwind, it's in a very sensible disadvantage. That is how things work. They're not tangible. They're not. It's not easy to see, but they're easy to feel. And how to dismantle that? I think that's the wisdom of what you're doing, Camille, Daniel, talking about it. I think that there are like some things that can be like felt like they're like rocket science. I truly believe in. I love the song of Barbara Streisand, "Ordinary Miracles." The ordinary miracle of just asking someone, talking with someone, getting to be a friend with someone in your community. And that drop by drop, conversation by conversation, gives you like this view. And then you discover important things in the community, and also even in society and in organizations. A lot of organizations, and I would say even society, they talk about meritocracy. A true meritocracy is only achieved by inclusion and by letting us discover the tailwinds and the headwinds. And that has to do with two things that you've said, Daniel, that were truly, I think, very powerful. The first one is to discover in people what they used to be called soft skills. And now they renamed it, and they are power skills. And it's like these power skills that people develop in a daily gymnasium of resilience, and that are truly valuable, and they are like the wind. They're not always evident. And the second one is like not just the ability or the capability that one person has in one moment, but like trying to understand like the trend and the starting point of his or her life. Because probably the capability right now are probably lower than another one, but the trend of their starting point and where they have got today can talk you more about their potential of a growing person in your organization and also in the community. It's like this like mindset, these lenses of seeing a person in your community, in your neighborhood, and seeing how they have grown and what they can teach you about life and about like giving you something to eat in this hungry foreign country that we all have.
Jorge, I could not have said it better. It's been a privilege to spend this time with you. I'm so lucky to have you as a friend because I know we'll continue the conversation. But Camille, thank you so much for your participation today and for sharing your wisdom and your questions as well. Keep in mind, these are sessions that we facilitate on a regular basis to help us all get more and further exposed to difference, to learn about different journeys, to begin to think in different ways. But that's only the start. As Jorge mentioned, it's about taking that next step and reflecting, and then interacting and engaging and understanding that we need that difference to do better. So let's do the work, and more will come. So join us. And thank you so much for being here with us today. Jorge, thank you so much for coming all the way from Orlando to our Florida site. And have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.